Welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm very excited today. We have one of the trailblazers of this industry and somebody who I certainly look up to, Lachlan Wilmot. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Great man.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Very kind words. I think you only look up to me because you're shorter than me, mate. No other reason.
That's most people, to be honest with you, but that's okay. Um, Mate, without this turning into a Lockie love session, I just want to make it clear to the audience. I'm sure that most people would recognise him. Obviously, a highly recognisable face in particularly the Australian strength and conditioning industry. But people say that we're busy. This man has been involved in pro sport. He's obviously involved in Athletes Authority, which has been probably the number one S&C facility for a number of years in Australia. He's also got 4 kids under 4. I don't know how he does it, but I just want to say thank you for the work you've done. You're also on the ASCA board as well. To really highlight this industry, to drive better standards. You're super open in an industry that can be pretty withdrawn and is full of individuals who want to protect their 1 square metre. So thanks for all the work you've done for the industry, mate. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it, mate. Oh, well, yeah, very kind words, mate. Clip it, put it on the Instagram, and end the conversation there. Done. Yeah.
That's our snippet. So I guess maybe let's rewind back. I'm sure you've probably been through the journey a bit, but I guess for me, probably like most people, the first time I really heard of Lachlan Wilmot was when I think that razor curl video from the GWS Giants went viral.
Yeah.
Talk to us like a little bit more prior to that, and then we'll delve into sort of how you branched into the private sector a little bit later.
Yeah, look, I think we were just talking about before, obviously, the current state of the industry and offline, off air, however you want to say it, around, I suppose, expectation.
We used a few choice words that
Yes.
we can't actually publicly post, to be honest.
Can't we? Can't we? We can fucking swear, can't we?
Kim, our editor, will be all over it.
Yeah. Look, I think, my background is, to be honest, like everyone that's in our industry, failed athlete, if you want to call it that. I don't even know if I got to the stage that you'd call an athlete, but loved the process of training. To be honest, I played AFL and I probably enjoyed lifting weights more than I did training, and probably did myself out of even an option there because I kind of went a bit too big, a bit too early. So you can't run around with that. But yeah, ultimately, I think you just fall in love with the process. You just read everything you can. You want to improve yourself. You get stuck into the training. And I was a personal trainer, and then just love the sport side of things, and went the undergraduate route, and kind of volunteered and put my hand up for everything. And I think speaking to what we were saying sort of off air was just this. I think, and don't get me wrong, I am a big proponent of making sure that you're not taken advantage of. And I think there's a big difference between getting taken advantage of, where you're sold a dream or you're giving a huge amount of responsibility for no pay, versus actually earning the right to demand pay, and actually just grinding your teeth and getting experience. Because a lot of people have said it before, and I love the mentality of like, what am I actually going to pay you for? Like, if you think I'm going to pay you because you've got an undergraduate degree, then what's the point? I can pay anyone for that. There's hundreds of thousands of people coming out with undergraduate degrees. I pay someone to add to our environment, whether that's via learned or innate personality and engagement you can give to athletes, if it's experience, if it's knowledge, all these type of things. But I'm sorry, like, I'm not paying for a 3-year undergraduate degree of knowledge, because it's not good enough. And that's not to say you shouldn't be paid in roles. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is you probably don't need to have that expectation, and you are sort of my journey. And that was kind of it. That's what got me to where I was, because I volunteered and put my hand up for everything. And back then, arguably, you might say, maybe I had more responsibility than I should have for the pay I was on. But that was just kind of the mentality. And at the time, the AIS AFL program was a thing. And the strength and conditioning coach there, James Veal at the time, I met him and I literally said to him, mate, anything you need, let me know. I'd love to help out. A couple of weeks later, they had a camp. He goes, mate, I actually need a helping hand. I'm like, I'm there. I drove to Canberra, 2 weeks, volunteered, just fucking got myself involved. He called me back again. And then I think at the end of the first year, him and I think at the time was Jason McCartney, called me and said, look, we want to offer you the assistant role. I'm like, great. And they're like, we pay in kit and shoes. That's fine. Couldn't care less. Didn't even ask for fuel. Just, sign me up. Jumped on board and did that. And Alan McConnell was the head coach there at the time, and he became the first employee of the Giants. And that was my first pro role. Alan McConnell called me and said, I want you to be my strength and conditioning coach in Team GWS that first year. And there's no way he would have known who I was or what I did if I hadn't have volunteered. If you couldn't pick a more exact summary of what got me to where I was versus what people should be doing now. And again, I'm not saying that you can volunteer till you're 30 and all these stuff. I can appreciate there's a lot of hurdles in life, no doubt. But when you're young, when you're living at home, when you don't really have any, you don't have 4 kids, you do. You just got to try and just soak up as much as you can and get as much experience, because you don't know what someone will pay you for. And you get experience volunteering under someone somewhere, and then you apply for a job and you say, I did this for 6 months or a year, and then maybe that's something you will get paid for. You're not going to get paid for an undergrad, but you will get paid for learned experiences that you can bring to private, pro, whatever it might be. What got me there was just the love of the industry and just wanting to be involved. And it was the right time. I was young. I could do that, and I did. And ultimately, that's what got me the first sort of role in the Giants, which, again, a few years later, then by chance, I don't know if it was viral, but early viral, that would be, first. And that's kind of the thing. I was probably one of the first, admittedly, to be putting stuff in a pro setting on social media. It definitely wasn't really done there. Now it's, everyone does it everywhere. Like, it's just flooded. But I think that's probably another reason why it kind of went a bit more viral, because it was like, oh, well, this is a pro athlete and it's their training. We don't tend to see a lot of that back then anyway.
Love it. You've got me pumped up. Like I'm about to run through a brick wall. I might start doing push-ups in a second. And to be honest with you, again, at the risk of sounding like the old man's club saying, back in my day, but again, I resonate, because I did my first internship at the Crows, 12 months, under probably somebody you know well, Nick Poulos.
Yeah.
Who, at the time, to be honest with you, I'm a 17-year-old, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed S&C coach, student really, not even S&C coach at that point in time, who I actually got paid $500 for fuel for that 12 months, which was pretty amazing.
And you walked to the facility, didn't you?
I profited that year. But at the time, I thought, oh my God, this is hard work. Nick would say, I want you to be here at 7 o'clock tomorrow to start working. So then I'd get there at 6 o'clock to do a workout. He put me in the office and goes, if you can get here at 6 o'clock to work out, you can get here at 6 o'clock to work. So, there was some harsh lessons learned, but with hindsight now, lessons that I'm so grateful for. And similarly, really the essence of what PEAQ is now all started from, once I'd finished that internship and went on to do my master's at ECU, which was all remote. I handed my resume out to every sample club, and the only club that got back to me said, hey, we've got no money for you. Do you want to do some PT out of our club for free? So I was charging players' girlfriends $20 an hour at like 5 and 6 a.m. in the morning. Then I'd study during the day and then do the sample lessons at night. So I love it, mate. It's great.
When Sean floated this idea of potentially opening up a gym and a private facility, I'll be honest, this is not necessarily my world. So when he proposed it and said, look, there's this awesome place in Sydney called Athletes Authority, and they're kind of the gold standard, and I had absolutely no idea who you guys were and what you did, but obviously super impressed with the product that you put out, and that really was, shaped sort of how we move forward in starting our business. So whereabouts in your timeline did Athletes Authority pop up, and how did that all start?
Yeah, it's very specifically at my 30th, because that's when, the year leading into my 30th, so that was, was that 8 years ago? So 2015, back end of 2015, Carl opened what was still called Athletes Authority then, but it was effectively more like a personal training type establishment, just around the corner from me and where my now wife lived. So we went down and just started training there, because I'd known Carl previously from the industry and a couple of just general internship stuff, and that's probably a whole nother podcast, the Dodgy Bastards, how we met. ESS Performance, I'll publicly name them. They're a freaking absolute farce. I think they've gone under now, but they publicly ripped a lot of people off, and sold my face for a $10,000 internship that I didn't know that was there, and then I was not a part of it. I just, because they used the Giants facility, I just kind of managed the evenings in the early stages to make sure nothing stuffed up in the gym that I was obviously working in. But yeah, then I left and left these interns that had paid a fair bit of money to intern under me, and I wasn't even a part of it. So anyway, that's a whole nother story. But there's a lot of dodgy people in our industry, so watch out. But ultimately, when that opened and I went down, chatted with Carl, and at that time, I kind of was certainly of the opinion, as much as I love pro sport, I kind of knew I don't probably want to answer to a head coach my whole life. I maybe foreshadowed having too many kids, but looking at now, I'm like, if I had to answer to a head coach every day with the dynamics that are the kids at the moment, it would not go down well. So that was always an intent, and I kind of knew at that stage I couldn't just magically end pro sport and then walk into a facility and have people, because I wasn't a name. It was I worked at the Giants. It's not like the Giants players are going to magically come and pay for all this training and stuff like that. So that was kind of the driving force for at least starting on Instagram as well, because I thought, well, that's a good way to start to build maybe a following, at least some athletic prowess for local athletes if I was to open something. And then obviously speaking with Carl, I sort of spoke to him about these type of things, and he came to my 30th for a few drinks, and over a few drinks we were just saying, and if you know Carl, he doesn't really drink, so it was only half a beer, he was already blind, but understanding where his values were, where he wanted to go, and we aligned and said, well, while I'm still in pro sport, let's start to see what we can evolve here. And almost overnight, sort of I bought in and we went 50-50 in the company. Well, it was a small business then, and turned it into a company and did 50-50, and effectively turned it into what it is now, revamped it, sort of cleared the yellow that was a part of the logo, went black and white, went far more strict on athletes. We spent a couple of years of really cleaning out the facility, where we had a weightlifting club, we had a powerlifting club, we had general pops. We kind of removed all of that and really just went the athletics side of things. I know you guys have got a massive facility there and a heap of things going on, but if you've ever had a weightlifting club, they're a real nightmare to have in a facility where they especially powerlifters as well, they all spend about 4 hours in their little area, and we had athletes trying to do hurdle jumps, and we had Olympic lifters going, "You can't jump in front of me, you can't do it, how dare you jump in front of me?" And it's just like, I understand and appreciate what you're trying to do, but this dynamic is not going to work. So that was kind of where we really doubled down on the athletic population that are not barbell sports. That was kind of the initiation of it. And that was, I was at the Giants for a year and a half, maybe 2 years while that was building, and then got the opportunity at Parramatta Eels, and it was as if I was married to Carl at the time, because it was kind of like, well, what do you think about it? Because if I commit to this is, it's a 3-year contract, so it's another few years that I'll be out and not in, and we both sort of agreed to host a Sydney facility and have an owner having NRL experience. I think it'd be pretty powerful. So we both agreed that I'd take the role. So moved into the Parramatta role, and that was kind of the real crux of, I did 2 years there, and that second year, the growth of AA was just exponential, and I reckon Carl would have necked himself if I had have gone another year in pro sport, because he was very, he was working his ass off. It was growing quickly, and it was also a year where I hadn't previously done this, but I was at work on days where I was kind of thinking, I wish I could be at AA. Like you had that desire to be there. So as much as I love pro sport, I'd never really had that feeling of wanting to be anywhere else. But that year there were times where it's like, you know what? As much as I love the role, I really wish I could just be at AA today. And I think that was probably the sign of, well, this is probably an indicator that I probably need to transition. And look, it was probably the best thing in the end, because that was 2019. So I transitioned the end of 2019 into the private sector, out of NRL into AA, and a couple of months later, COVID hit. So then it's, I would have had to have if I was still in NRL, I would have had to bubble up, would have had to go to Queensland, left the facility. The facility itself, as you guys know, when you started, we shut down, we redistributed stuff to our athletes, we went online. We were dynamic, and the ability to do that was because of having both myself and Carl there. If I hadn't have been there, I think it would have been a real struggle to really have the ability to service all of our athletes. So probably a blessing in disguise. It meant that I didn't get bubbled up and sucked away from Sydney, but also meant that we could be a lot more dynamic and reactive in the private space. So the universe has plans, and so ultimately that was the end, and away we went.
Amazing. Now, I think I was going to say I'd love to touch back on a few things there. I think when we get back to people management side, when you talked about the powerlifters before, I think we can revisit that afterwards. But probably just before we head on, you talked about obviously that you were one of the first people to sort of start to share content from inside a pro setting. And then obviously sort of since that point, you've gone on and you had the role at Parramatta and the Swifts. Was there any kickback from like an organizational perspective around sharing that content? Number one, and then later on down the track, once this became more of a popular or more widely distributed sort of your content, did you have any clubs that were unwilling or a bit more resistant to work with you because they're worried that you're trying to use this as leverage to promote Athletes Authority? And I'll say that from experience because I've had a mixed bag of lollies.
Yeah, look, as a whole, the answer is no. I've never really had an issue. There's been the murmurs. So, for example, at Para, certainly not any of the powers to be, but there was certainly a coach there that sort of suggested that we don't really want to put things on social media because we don't want to give away secrets. And I jokingly said, that we squat, that we fucking push prowlers. Like, there's no secrets, mate. Like that's the type of concern. Like the old mentality of coaches that think there's all these secrets. Now, when I say secrets, there is IP. Okay, so there certainly is within clubs. There is certainly IP. Even at the Giants, there were certain things that I always made sure were not in the shot. We had a big banner up that was sort of our motto and a couple of our key internal things that would never be on social media. I wish I could say this and make it easy. Like, at the end of the day, it's common sense. I know that's not that common these days, and we experience it all the time, that things you don't think you needed to say, you actually do need to say. But I think in this case, that was my mentality, that like, I know what IP is and I know what secrets are, but there's no real training secrets, but there is certainly some IP things. So if I was to ever film stuff, I would always be filming exercises predominantly out of context. I'd be rarely showing full sessions. I'd be rarely showing results or loads or where it fits into programs. So that type of entirety was not there. It was always snapshots, which sometimes, again, we say can be bad because people take things out of context. But at the end of the day, it also allows you to put more private work on show without giving anything away. As I said, in the NRL, there was a coach that was a bit annoyed that thought it was giving away secrets. At the end of the day, it was, he was one of my directs, so it wasn't something that I was concerned about. I was still very conscious. To be honest, the ability to put things on social media in that role got less and less because it was just a very chaotic and busy role. So then, for example, even at the Swifts, there's no issue there. Again, it's all sort of out of context. You're not showing big things. I've never really had anyone say anything about, you can't do that, you can't do this. But on the other side, I also know that, when I got the Parramatta role, there was a certain individual, maybe after a beer I'll name, but I can't stand the bloke at all, but suggested that I got the role because of my social media, which if you know the people involved in Parramatta, they wouldn't even know how to spell IG. Like, it's like Matt Arthur, who was the head coach there, love him to death. He would never have been on social media in his life. So the people that hired me would not even know that I had a social media. So that type of thing is where you get people, regardless of what you do. If you don't post or you do post, people are gonna hate on you or say things about it. And 90% of the time, not to your face, which you know that they're a bit scared or callous if they start to do stuff behind your back. But unfortunately, that's the industry. So to answer your question simply, I haven't experienced any direct management say things. But I do believe there is probably a line in the pro sector you do need to walk where you do need to understand what's IP versus what's out of context based things that you can share.
Sounds like, as we've touched on, your journey and Sean's journey definitely have some parallels in terms of the private and professional sector. And from what I can gather from listening to you talk and our experiences, they definitely feed into one another and have absolutely helped on both sides. Sean always jokes that our business upholds his S&C habit because he's waited a long time to knock on the door of some of the roles that he's at now. We've noticed post-COVID a lot of coaches becoming more entrepreneurial and maybe not going down the academic route. What do you say as somebody who has been in both of those worlds to coaches coming up? Do you think there is merit in, working in that private sector if they still want to be in pro, or just, what's your opinion on that?
So look, I think it's great. I think people need it. I think people probably use the term entrepreneur a little bit too much. I feel like an entrepreneur, by definition, you need to have invested a lot of stuff into it. Simply starting an online training business is probably not entrepreneurial, because I don't know if there's any risk there. I think by definition, you need to put risk, i.e. you invested something into it that you could lose. That's semantics, I know, but I think people having these type of, we talk about side hustles, plan Bs, they're certainly there, and I think you'd probably be silly not to look at how to capitalise on things. There are a lot of coaches that sit back and go, I'd never do this, as they look at someone buy their third Lamborghini and they're like, oh no, well that doesn't count because they do it online. It's like, at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to do and what you get excitement about. Like, I generally don't really get that excited for online training. I don't really do it. I have a handful of people that I've been with that have gone overseas that would like me to continue to program for them. So obviously it naturally becomes online, but it's certainly not something that I do a lot of. And I think when we look at these roles, and Sean, you might be able to speak to it a bit as well, but I think when you're young, the high performance manager role is very shiny and you think that's where you want to go. When you finally get there, you realise it's quite political. There's a lot of managerial side to it. And business is the same. Like, it's great to say I want to own a gym because I love training. But when you own a gym, you don't really get that much time to train at the gym. You're doing everything else. So you then got to decide, well, do I love doing that? And I think I don't know if it takes confidence or arrogance, but for me, I'm very happy to admit I actually don't love the business side. There's stuff that I enjoy, but I don't love being the one and only business hat. In the same instance, I actually didn't love the entirety of a high performance manager role. The other day, it took a lot of years to sort of really, I think, look inside and go, well, what do I actually love doing? And I love coaching. I love coaching, and I love coaching with athletes. And anything that pulls me away from that drains more energy than it gives. And at the end of the day, you're always going to do shit you don't like. That's what jobs are. As you get older, you hope that you can shift more and more to the stuff you love and start to push out the stuff you don't love. But I feel like it's the old 80-20 rule. If 80% of your job can be what you love, then that 20% that you don't particularly love, you can sink your teeth into and do well. And I think that's where, when you're looking at, do I open a facility? Do I do more entrepreneurial things? You got to decide what you love, because if you don't actually love doing that, or at least have the drive to love the end result where you can kind of push through, you're not magically going to have, I'm going to start to open a gym and I'm going to love everything about it because it's my gym. It's not the case. There's a lot, and I'm sure you guys will be nodding, there's a lot of stuff you just don't enjoy doing. There's nothing worse than trying to deal with so I think how I say this part, but deal with members that maybe have requests that are clearly against policy, but because you know them and they're friendly, they try and milk you for your good feel, and then they force you into being a dickhead because you try and hold what you have for the whole group. And once you open the floodgates for one, you actually then it's worse for everyone. So there's little things like that that's hard. So I think you really need to decide what you love. And I think in the private sector, there's two different areas as well, because I've certainly identified that, me personally, I love a game day. I love game day. That's the best way for me to summarize pro sport. People say, do you not want to go to pro sport? How good would it, you're so flexible with your scheduling now. And yes, I am. It's great for my family, but I love pro sport. And I certainly see myself back in pro sport in one day. I probably don't see myself in a performance manager role. I probably actually see myself in more of a head strength and conditioning role, where I get to coach more and delve in. But ultimately, it's what you love. And I'm lucky enough here. We've got 3 directors, myself, Josh, and then Carl. And we managed to split our portfolios. And my portfolio is coaching and performance. So I get to hold a list, I get to coach, I get to be involved with our coaches and do a lot of what I love. I also do shit I don't love, but you get it done because that's the 20%. And so that's the point. I think if you love doing certain aspects, if you want to say, will I love being in the private sector, does the private sector have what you love doing day to day for majority? Then yeah, definitely. And the private sector is growing every week, and I think the competition it's going to have with pro sport is substantial, because you can certainly get your satisfaction and that passion tick from a lot of things in the private sector now. But again, we work in an environment where most of our coaches and physios want to be in pro sport. And so they're going to have that pro sport bug. And it's, for us, you might have the same side where we kind of know we're sometimes home. We're going to have people, we want to develop them, build them up. And unfortunately, they get poached for pro sport. So it's that bittersweet. It's great for them. It's great for us long term. But short term, onboarding someone new and finding another good fit is very hard. But if we want to have the culture and develop what we want to develop here, the style of person that we will hire is someone that will ultimately get taken by pro sport. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, I think, as you said, to sort of speak on it further, and Bojo's really clear on it as well, I haven't been a HPM in a professional setting, to be completely transparent, but he's very open in saying it's just meetings. He barely spends any face-to-face time with the players because he's in selection meetings, medical meetings, political meetings, board meetings, all these sorts of things, always just really managing people as opposed to coaching yourself. So it's, as you said, not what everybody sort of makes it out to be.
And mate, when I was HPM at Para, I purposely kept the warm-up. Like, I don't know how many HPMs are on the warm-up.
No, absolutely.
I got to coach them. I got to add in some speed work, a little bit of conditioning. Like, at least I got to own that. And it was forced. All the coaches were on field, so no one could pull me in for a meeting. But then you're like, I'll be in the gym. But as soon as gym starts, guess who pulls you in for a meeting? So I can appreciate that.
Yeah, and similarly, like yourself, there's definitely aspects from a business perspective that I really, dislike. I love being on the floor. I love being, around the energy and coaching, as you said. I'm happy to say it now because they're not a member here. We literally this week, we talk about the roller coaster. Jaimi says she's going to she's going to write a book about the entrepreneurial wife, because we have some real up days and we have some real down days. But this last week, we had a member, for whatever reason, almost sort of claim ownership of the facility themselves and decided to approach another member over something that they thought was an issue, which didn't actually go against any of our guidelines at all. So the member who got approached then called us very upset. So then we approached the member who had, made the mistake essentially. And that then turned into sort of, this blown up situation. They turned themselves into a victim, and that was a fun saga for a week, wasn't it? But again, all the things that we don't post on socials, all the things that people don't consider when they're, looking at what the layout of their facility is going to be when they first sign the lease, on that first initial contract.
Or what gym equipment you're going to pick, or what colour the wall's going to be. That's probably the smallest percentage of what you actually do.
Mate, we have a saying here. Whenever something happens, it's we say put it in the book, because it is. It's just it's another story, another chapter, and one skill set that I joke when people talk about, especially young coaches, and they talk about having, they say difficult conversations. I try to use the word genuine conversations, but when you have to have those conversations that no one really wants to have, but you've got to have them. I said the best upskill in that is owning a facility when members come to you because someone else smells. So then you have to tell that individual to put deodorant on. And I'm sure you're laughing because I'm sure you've probably done it.
We've done it. We've done that before.
I am an absolute professional now. Like, I've even had staff that walk into my office and they stink. I'm like, wait, put deodorant on. I just give it. You get good at it. Back 10 years ago, I could think of nothing more anxiety driving than to have to go tell someone they stink and they've got to put deodorant on. Now, rolls off the tongue like, I love you to my kids. It's as easy as that.
Well, I don't know, and I'm hoping it's not us uniquely. We've had some other people sort of share experiences from other facilities, but gym bathrooms are a whole. It's like a whole. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm sure. Hopefully, you can empathise.
We had an issue, and I think they've gone now because it stopped, but we never actually caught who it was. We would have tampons and pads supplied in our bathrooms for our female athletes. And I can only think it was a teenage boy, but we went through about a 3-month, maybe 2-month period of an individual would wet a pad and then throw it and stick it on the roof. So you'd go into the bathroom and then there's a pad stuck to the roof. And this was common.
I'm sorry for laughing, mate, because I just feel you.
Like, where was that in undergrad? This is what I say. I'm not paying for someone with an undergrad because that's the type of shit that we experience. And it's just like, oh, well, let's put it on the HPM dot point under role.
Put that in the job description next time.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of a 360 from that now, prepping to chat to you today. Again, I obviously saw some parallels between you and Sean, and I think we could sit here, or at least you and Sean could sit here and talk about the nitty-gritty details of, the science behind S&C coaching. But something that really resonated for me from what you post on your socials is the art of coaching, and I hear Sean talk about it a lot as well. So, coaching isn't just about those sets and reps, but really about the communication and the connections that you build. How important is that side of coaching to you?
Oh, massive. Yeah, I think I have a love-hate relationship with sort of the term art of coaching because I think it's very important to understand that it is an art. But I think sometimes by saying art of coaching, it's a cop-out to younger coaches as if it can't be learnt or taught. It's kind of something that you just have to build or you have. And I reckon that's probably the biggest falsification of our industry. That yes, I think experience is massive. There's no doubt about it. And there is a lot of people that say the myth of experience, where just because you're experienced, it doesn't mean you know everything. And I agree with that. But there's a hell of a good chance that someone with 20 years experience versus 2 years is probably going to know a bit more. Simple as that. Does not mean that person of 2 years is not going to maybe know more about a topic and can really contribute things. And I think that's important to acknowledge with young coaches coming through, that some of them do delve into something. It might be tendons. They get so attached to the dick, they delve into it, and they'll know more than I do. And they've only been around for 2 years, but they've really doubled down on that. So I think for young coaches coming up, it doesn't mean you can't contribute a lot to areas. And I say this with our interns, when you're interviewing for, say, a pro role, the common thing is, what are you going to add? And the most common response is, I can only hope to add energy and enthusiasm to a department that is already so experienced. And you're just like, well, that's not what I want. Like, it's exciting. Yep, you've sucked up to the person interviewing you. But ultimately, like, you want to hire someone that can add something. Just because you're junior doesn't mean you can't add something. So I think that's important to understand. But when we look at the art of coaching, there is no doubt time gives you a lot of that. You have to have lived a shit experience. As I said, my ability to tell someone that they smell and they're going to put deodorant on is unmatched to anyone else, I think. But when we look at, say, a junior coach, when I was young, that would have been really hard for me. So when we talk about experience, that's a good analogy to show there's things that just become easier. There's so many times where I've said something, it's backfired. It sits in there. So when I have the same conversation with an athlete another time, I know not what to say. I know what I'm going to avoid. I know how to then deliver it differently, or even to foreshadow it and say, look, I know this is going to come across like this, but this is what's going to happen when this happens. And that's hard to learn without having experience. But the art of coaching, where, understanding how to engage with someone, how to build conversation, how to build trust, how to then deliver different things, whether you want to call it the art of sales and everything, how to frame things, that can be taught. And I just think a lot of coaches sometimes, it's harder to teach, but I think sometimes whether it's the mentor finds it a bit hard to teach, or the mentee maybe just puts it to the side because, we've all been there. I prefer to read, sets and reps and know how to get bigger arms right now because I'm 21. But, you see it all the time, when Burjo's a classic example when he presented the ASCA, like he comes from a higher point of view where it's kind of like experiences and unique stories and stuff. And I think the more experienced coaches sit there and they learn a lot. The younger coaches are like, well, how many reps of the squats did they do? Like, it's just natural. And it's not a piss take of it because that's the evolution of coaching. You've got to be like that. Because I'm also the other way around. I actually don't believe you can jump too early, because every great coach also knows the X's and O's. Like, they also know, how do you stimulate hypertrophy? How do you try and develop neural power or output when loading is through the roof in season? Like, these little things you need to know. So it's not like you can just skip it and go to the art of coaching. But I think the art of coaching is the key. It's the key that unlocks it, because and you still see it now. You see, I'll say, arguably terrible coaches that are still in very high positions, have great player buy-in, have great results, and you look at their whiteboard session and you go, really? Like, that's what's delivering the results. But it shows that the X's and O's are important, but they're not the most important. Because if someone buys into it, believes it, and you get a whole team on board and you've got the energy, the enthusiasm, commitment, just the buy-in, you'll get results with it. You'll get massive results. Could you have a better program if you combined it all? Of course you could. But I think that's where it shows that the potential, the art of it, and that ability to have the sales aspect, the commitment, the real connection is the most important. The most dangerous is when someone who's not good at their job has that. I always say the most dangerous person in anything is a really good person that's terrible at their job, because you're too late to fire them. You know, if someone's a dickhead and they're bad at their job, that's easy. See you later. You know, if someone's good at their job and a dickhead, that's hard balancing. Yeah, but at least you're getting the results. You've just got to put up with the individual. But when you've got someone that's terrible at their job but a really good person, it's hard. You find excuses left, right, and centre for them all the time, and you know, they're the ones that can be innately dangerous in any pro or private sector. So I don't know if I answered the question there. I just rambled, but.
No, I love it. I think that was awesome. Just quickly before we wrap up, have you ever had to be an experience where you've let go somebody like that you explained, who was a great person but shit at their job?
Yep, very much so. Yep.
Yeah. How did you go about that?
Very similar to putting deodorant on members. My first experience of firing someone, I did it with a coach at the time, and it was very good because he was very direct. And I think I realised just how no one wants to sit around and talk about shit. So I got very good at being direct with it. And it really is, if you're firing someone, well, if you've got an HR department, it makes it a lot harder, because we had to fire someone, and the HR department of this certain company told them that they have a meeting and they can bring a support person. So I was like, well, fuck, I think they know what's coming. So if you are just firing someone normally, for me, it's quick, it's sharp, it's direct, and it's honest. You'll get caught out if it's anything else. So if we're moving someone on, they'll come in, I'll say, look, at this stage, I'm going to have to move you on for these reasons, boom, boom, boom. Understand this might be a shock, or it might be the fact that they've been under performance review. I can understand that you've probably got a few questions, a few thoughts. We don't have to go through anything now. I just wanted to give you the notice now, and then you give them the date, end date, however you want to do it. Obviously, give them the option either to return to finish it off or not to return at all. And ultimately say, look, I think it's best if you want to go away and have a think, and I'm happy to sit down again either over the phone or in person, and we can go through any questions, any concerns. Often people go the other way. They lead in with 5 minutes of rambling because they're nervous to say it, and it always comes across worse. So it's to be honest, Moneyball's a perfect example. I don't know if you've watched Moneyball, when Brad Pitt explains to, forget his name, the bigger actor.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, anyway, watch Moneyball, and it talks about how to tell a player that they've been cut and they're moving on. And it's almost the same. It's a great way to think. You don't have to be cold, but direct, honest, and then just offer your support.
And that's something I need to get better at as well. I usually start with 5 minutes of things I really like about you.
And do you know what? Like, even the dumbest human is not dumb. They can sense. Like, if it's out of cat, like if you sit down and you start doing that, they've already sensed it, so they're not listening. They already know something's not right. And the same goes as when you do tell them that you're moving them on for these reasons, they're also not listening. They're kind of in their own head, and that's why there's no point having any constructive chat that right then. If they're pretty emotionally strong and they kind of come back with a couple of questions, then yeah, obviously you run with what they want. But most experiences I've had, they're usually a little bit rattled to really talk. They don't want to talk. They prefer to go away, reset, and then I've had some very constructive chats post moving people on.
Sure. Lockie, I've never seen Sean nod his head more in agreement during a podcast episode. I think it's like looking in a mirror, listening to you two talk and share your stories. And as someone who obviously is not necessarily in the S&C world professionally, but is just a part of it through our business, really admire the work that you do, and it's been really interesting hearing share your story today. So thank you so much for giving us your time, and thanks for not just having a love fest the whole time, Sean.
We'll stay on the line and we'll do that afterwards.
Yeah, look, mate, if you're going to be so complimentary, I'll come on more often. It's great. It's given me a nice big head for a Wednesday.
Awesome, mate. We really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing where your journey continues to go from here. And we'll get excited for getting you down here in Adelaide, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, well, look, same to you guys. The efforts that you've done in the community development first, and then the facility is second to none. And it's admirable to be able to watch you guys grow and go from strength to strength. Because I say it all the time that a lot of young coaches ask around setting up facilities and what to do, and so you want to know how to do it, you look at PEAQ. They fucking built a community that was too big for where they were, and that's what decides growth. There's too many, including in Adelaide, places that build first and they have zero community, they have zero engagement, they have zero results, and it's not the way to go. Everyone that's made it really has just built a strong community, and then they build everything around it, and they use that to support the community they already have. So it's admirable what you guys have done. So it's been a pleasure to be on. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate. So there you have it. Lachlan Wilmot, what a great man. I love that chat. Could have chatted for hours. For me, I really took out of that chat the realities of the professional and the private sector that may not make it onto social media, and also understanding what is the value you bring to an environment, whether you've had 2 or 20 years of experience.